Next, we'll want to invite Ben Rasmussen. We're on 9.1, which Ben Rasmussen was our hearing officer on R277-306, where at the conclusion of his report, I'll seek a motion. Ben.
Ben Rasmussen, Director of Law and Professional Practices. Thank you, Chair Huntsman, for the opportunity to be with you today. My report's very short. We had the public hearing last month. By state law, we were required to submit a hearing report which contains the backup documentation, the public comment, basically all the information to enable the board to make its policy decisions with respect to the rule. So that hearing report is available for you on Civic Clerk, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about the hearing process at this time.
Have any questions? Cindy, did you have
I
something?
just have motions if you're ready. No one has questions.
What's that?
I just have motions if you're
Okay,
ready.
well,
for motions.
we can take a motion. Yeah, so I'm seeking a motion to accept the hearing officer report of the December 5th USBE hearing on R277-306.
That,
So that's her, so she's got the motion.
okay.
Okay, that's to accept the, are you wanting to accept the report? Is that what,
We can accept the report, but then I have motions.
okay, that's in that, that's under 9.2. So we have a motion to accept the report. Is there a second? Second, discussion to the motion of accepting the report. Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Voting is unanimous. So under 9.2, Deputy Superintendent Angie Stallings, are you coming up for part of this? And okay. We've had this report. In this case, we have questions or
Thank you.
concerns.
Sure. I wasn't sure if Ben was going to just cover this, or I'd be happy to.
I think
So,
Cindy has motions
oh.
to make, but
No, we don't have the motion yet.
just the background I'll just give, and it's in the backup on Civic Clerk, is, as a reminder, R277-306 was filed with the Office of Administrative Rules, and as of last month has been ready to be made effective. Staff held on making that rule effective because of the public hearing, and now is awaiting for you to take any additional action. So we provided some options for you. You can see the options 1 through 4 and some potential motions, and then I think we're ready for you to make motions.
Board Member Davis.
So I'd like to make both and then speak to them.
Yeah,
Possible. The first is, I move we make R277-306 effective. This would allow the existing parts of the rule, well, I'll speak to it later. My second motion is,
Hold it. We're going to do one at a time.
I really have to say both.
So you,
so
why don't you
people
say
know
it
how
all
to
in
vote on it
one,
first.
all in one motion? We do one motion at a
We just
time.
say and.
you could make it a
And-
joint motion.
Does
I
Miss-
move we make R277-306 effective and that we send R277-306 to committee to direct staff to draft language to amend the rule to include, 1, details for requirements for a school social worker preparation program to be approved by the board, and 2, direction for the superintendent to establish and administer an alternative school social worker preparation program designed for individuals holding a social worker license issued by DOPL. And I'd like to speak to the motions.
Okay. Did you get all of that?
I can forward it to you. I have that language, Lorraine.
I can get, yeah.
It'd be nice to have it up. That's,
I can send it.
okay, we have a second? Okay, and you want to speak to your motion?
Yes. So, just by way of a little bit of background, we all should know that when it comes to our service providers, we're really inconsistent. There is no one rule that governs all of our service providers. We don't have, all service providers have school licenses, or all school service providers are DOPL licensed. Some are DOPL licensed, some have school. So for example, why do school psychologists have a school educator license when maybe an audiologists are only licensed through DOPL. I don't have the answers to those questions, and I don't think this fixes those inconsistencies. But just in the silo of school social workers and in light of our feedback from our public hearing, what I'm suggesting in these motions is somewhat of a hybrid. So, for example, if we were to just stay status quo, then all school social workers would need a school license. If we were to take on the new rule, then that license would go away. Even if we grandfathered in those who already had a school license, the opportunity for new school licenses for social workers would go away. So what I'm suggesting is a hybrid of the two. And it would be that an LEA still would now have the flexibility of hiring a social worker that is DOPL licensed, just like they do an audiologist or occupational therapist. But the school social workers that already have a school license can keep that license, and it will be maintained and monitored by USBE as such. And those who are hired even without a school license and that want to achieve or get a license for school, they can either go to the U of U, which is the only university that has a program, or we can look at, through these motions, an opportunity for an alternative route to licensure for school social workers, similar to what we have for teachers. And then that would give them the opportunity to branch over. Some of the concerns that were expressed in the hearing were for social workers that wanted to pursue an administrative path. This would allow them to do that if they had a school social work license first. But I'm open to any and other opinions.
Thank you. Motion before the board is that we make R277-306 effective, and that we send R277-306 back to committee and direct staff to draft language to amend the rule to include, number one, details for requirements for a school social worker preparation program to be approved by the board, and number two, direct the superintendent to establish and administer an alternative school social worker preparation program designed for individuals holding a social worker license issued by DOPL. That is your motion, is how you stated it? Okay. Discussion to that motion, Board Member Marsh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am encouraging you to consider voting for what she has proposed, as I had some people reaching out to me after our meetings and had some discussions and some questions answered. Really, in all fairness, which we don't have totally and completely with everybody involved in our school systems as to having a consistent status, I think that they need to be offered the opportunity to do the same as any of our ARL people are. You have an engineer that wants to come in and teach math, as long as he goes back and takes that certification that teaches him classroom management, you know, school governance, whatever, that they have the ability to learn that and understand the school systems and to be able to work in it, and also gives us an opportunity as a school system to help our social workers understand that working in the school is different than a family setting or a private individual setting. So I would hope that we could at least work in coherence with each other to help with the things that she's brought up and discussed here, so that we can do what's best for kids.
Board Member Scott Nielsen, it shows AAG Table 1, but so you haven't logged in, but so we'll go with, instead of the AAGs, we'll go with Board Member Scott Nielsen.
Yes. So very quickly, I just had a quick question, Sunit. Does this, because I'm really apprehensive about, this is my own personal opinion, but I don't like it when non-teachers become administrators in schools. I don't like it, because it's like you have no teaching experience, but then you're going to run a school. And so that's one thing that I'm very concerned with. I'm not saying they're not good people. You just haven't been in the classroom with kids, so I've had that before where I've had experience and they're good people, but they come in and I'm like, you've never ever been a teacher, yet you're overseeing teachers, and I don't like that. So how does this, explain to me how this process is going to work itself out?
So I've had a similar question, actually.
Okay.
But I have been told in my questioning of Travis and others here that we have, that's kind of a generally held opinion, but that our university programs have like a 10% acceptance rule. And so there's, there could be perhaps like 10% of these, of service providers that could be rock star administrators. It's maybe not going to be
Right.
the norm. It's not going to be a teacher who's taught for 20 years, but, and so that is addressed in these kind of enrollment requirement for teacher admin licenses and things like that. That's what I was told. And then also there is a board rule that addresses it somehow, but now I can't remember exactly how it was, and I don't think Travis is here. Oh, he is here. But anyway, we had some dialogue along that same line, and I felt satisfied after I got the answers that he gave, but he could share maybe more information if it's appropriate for the chair.
So let's speak to this motion. This is R277-306. I understand there's maybe a kind of a parallel, but are we talking about principles in R277-306, or is it something else?
Well, his concern to approve this is that we'll have more and more non-teachers trying to become principals of schools.
Which, I'm going to go back to the motion. The motion is to have it go back to committee, and that's where all of this gets knocked down, drag out,
Right.
fight, whatever's happening.
They are correct, Chair. I just had a question for Cindy regarding this, but
Oh, okay. So I want to keep it right specific to the motion R277-306 and not have it take from your motion. So are you okay with that answer, Scott? Yes, I am. Okay, thank you. Vice Chair Brittany Cummins.
So I'm supportive of the concept. My only question is why the specificity in bullet 2, which talks about a superintendent's ARL program, which seems to kind of be different than what we're doing in most of the other licensing rules, which is to create a licensing alternate route that's not overseen by the superintendent. And so I'm just wondering why it's so specific to that and not allowing for this program to follow the same pattern that the other licensing rules have followed. Can I ask that question
I
specifically?
could start to
Okay.
answer, but I would like to see if we could have Travis Rawlings come assist.
Travis, will you come up? So
My,
we're speaking to the number 2, why, I call it a pathway. Why is it a little different than our previous pathway to have the superintendent? I believe that is the question.
Thank you. Travis Rawlings, Educator Licensing Coordinator for the State Board. This is actually in conjunction with some of the fine tuning and revisions of the rules that will be coming. In particular, one of the concerns that has been addressed in R277-301, and this may be too much detail, but in 301, it talks about that unless it is an elementary or a secondary program, it must be a university-based program. One of the things that we're discovering is that in some of these other areas, some universities are not willing to participate in those things. And so the goal is to revise that language in 301 that would say they have to be in a university or superintendent run. So it's saying that those specialized licenses have to be either a university or established by the superintendent, and that's where that language from the bullet 2 came from. In case that, you know, the University of Utah, the only current program, and I'm not saying they would do this, but theoretically they could say, we're only taking our students because we have to account them for accreditation, for our reporting nationally, you know, those kinds of issues. And so this gives us an option if we need to have another option. That was the idea behind the language.
Does that answer your question? Yes. Okay. Board Member Belknap.
Thank you, Chair. I have 2 questions.
Okay.
And I don't really know, so someone's going to have to help me. Why are we moving this and make it effective, but then we're throwing it back? Is there, or do we have a sunset problem?
Well, the rule that we're making effective has the preparation program guidelines for several other license areas that aren't affected by the potential changes. So we want to make the rule effective so that those preparation programs can move forward and understand what's expected.
Thank you.
second question.
Second one, Chair. Would this, if this passes or we set this pattern, would this include that the psychologists could receive the teacher supplemental supply money? Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so if, I'm going to answer that if that's all right. So yes, currently, only board licensed social workers qualify for
Right.
the educator salary adjustment. If you remember, back when this issue was discussed in law and licensing, the committee and then the board made a motion for us to seek legislation to allow school social workers who are only licensed by DOPL to be able to receive the educator salary adjustment and the professional staff cost amount. And so we are working on a bill with a legislator to do that. It will have a fiscal impact, likely. I don't know how much. But I guess to answer your question, if the bill passes that we asked for, both those who are only licensed by DOPL as well as those who have both licenses would then qualify.
Okay.
But that is contingent on a bill passing.
Board Member Gravitt.
I want to speak in favor of this motion. I really like that because I'm just in favor of anything that has, anybody who comes into our school has training and education. Because sometimes I don't think we talk about when somebody comes into the school without educational background, it's a burden on teachers, and when you place a burden on teachers, you place a burden on students, because my job is to teach, not to teach adults. And so I just really appreciate getting whoever comes into the school, they get the proper training before they come in.
Board Member Cannon.
Thank you. I also speak in favor of this motion. I think there are a lot of people in the district that I represent on the board who are social workers, who are dually licensed, and they have reached out to me with lots and lots of concerns. They love being a part of the school system. They love having an educator's license, and this makes it optional for them to continue. It makes it optional for them to have that position in the school that they love so much. And I think also at this point in time, as we look at 306, we don't even have the word social worker or social work mentioned in it currently. So I think an amendment is appropriate to put them back in, because as we look at our schools, we see social workers are critical to address safe and healthy schools. They're critical to address suicide prevention. They're critical for the social and emotional learning components that we want to add. So I'm very grateful for Cindy's motion and the help that the staff has given her to come with this. It allows our LEAs options. And so if you're in a rural area LEA and you have trouble providing these people, you can go another route. However, if you can get the social worker that is dual licensed, the LEA can choose that route as well. So thank you, Cindy, I'm in favor.
Okay. Board Member Bolter.
I am just trying to, I see where in the rule it talks about school counselors. Are you wanting to add a separate thing in the rule that has to do with social workers? Or is it like the same kind of, or is that falling under school counselors?
Okay, Ben.
So with this motion, we would add a new section, bring it to law and
For
licensing,
social
that would
workers.
outline what is required for the social worker preparation programs.
That's what I was getting confused. Okay, thank you.
Board Member Lear.
I just had a question. Is this, I'm trying to figure out what this means and looks like, and one of them is, Jenny's comment just prompted a thought about, this wouldn't necessarily say that these people would have that training before they go to the classroom. It sounds like they would have it OJT, on the job, like a lot of, hang on, let me get to my other question still, because then you'll have a couple of answers. And the second question I have, is this just sort of like an ARL for school social workers? An ARL program, that's what it feels like to me, and which, I said this before, but it feels like we pass a rule that says no one needs educator licenses, and then all of a sudden this is just the first of perhaps many that we really mean they do need educator licenses, or educator licenses of some sort. So I was just, maybe the question is for Cindy and/or Travis, is this an ARL program of sorts for school social workers? And then what about the timeline?
So let's have Travis answer that. Again, this isn't the end product. This is just sending it back to committee. When it goes back to committee, these two things can be addressed and a whole bunch of others. It's not limited to this. As you
So
guys
what's but my point is, what's their thinking right now about it? Because that changes how I might vote.
Okay, and I just want to remind everyone, we're not in committee, but Travis, we answer that question.
Certainly. In regards to whether or not this is an alternative program for school social worker licenses, the answer is yes and no. The alternative program is because a license is required. The overarching intention here is that LEAs would have the option to require this license or not, and so therefore, again, the alternative program is available if necessary or if the district wants it, and, you know, if that's what they want to do. So yes and no, but there you go.
That's
Okay,
kind of helpful, thanks.
all right.
What about the timeline? Can we just ask, what was someone thinking about the timeline?
In terms of bringing the rule back,
No, in terms of, so when does this training developed by the superintendent have to be in place for the person to work in a school?
Again, you can, it's going to be, it's going back to committee to talk.
I don't know yet. I don't know the answer to
You
that
don't know
question.
the answer.
Okay, board member, so we still have a lot of lights on to ask more questions about the rule, and I just want to remind everyone, if this passes, we're talking about sending this back to committee, and specifically talking about those two items. Board member Jenny Earl.
I guess I'm going to get the same lecture.
I'm not going to lecture. This is, you guys, this is your time, but at the same time, this is, yeah.
I
gonna
guess
keep
I'm still
reminding
trying to
everyone.
understand, are we wanting them to have to get? Now I'm trying to sort it out in my mind because I'm listening to all this different dialogue. Okay, maybe this is better because I'm
The
trying.
question is, does this board want, the question is, do you want this to go back to committee and R277 306 and bring betterments back to the board? And there's going to be some things hashed out in here, time, and what does this really mean, and there's input, and that is what, we are not resolving, we're not doing the committee work. I mean, you certainly, this is your time, but that committee work, there's going to be work that happens in that committee. Well, that's what I'm. That's, I just want to remind where we're at. I'm not being the grumpy grandpa here. It's just your time, because because this isn't gonna, it's not gonna pass as a new rule or a revised rule. Okay, board member Belknap. Board member, the AAG table seems to trump some different things here, so I'm going to get to you. Well, let's just do it now. Board member Scott Nelson.
Yes, I moved the previous question.
Okay, we're going to vote to end debate here. I am sorry, this is where we're at. All those in favor to end debate, say aye. Those opposed? For the ayes, raise your hand. Board member Mark Marsh, board member Newell, board member Scott Nielsen, board member Haynes, board member Lear, board member Gravitt. Okay, it doesn't pass. Okay, board member Davis.
I just want to reiterate a couple of things. I'm hearing from a lot of people, we want our folks who are working with students to have some school training and awareness. If we move forward without the amendment with the new rule, then for any social workers coming on board, there wouldn't even be an option for us to monitor a school license. That would be gone. So this at least provides some of those folks to get what you are asking for. So that's one thing that I want to just make very clear. And the second one is, we can't just send it back to committee. Well, I guess we can do whatever we want, but there are a lot of other license areas in this rule that need to get moving.
Okay. Vice Chair Brittany Cummins.
So I'm supportive of the first part that moves this forward. My question comes up because the words keep coming back and forth. And you said optional, but Travis used the word required. And so I don't want to send this back to committee if this is going to be required. So is this license required for a school social worker or a social worker to work in a school?
May I
Yes.
respond, Chair? So that question will come up actually later today when you vote on R277-309. Because there's two issues. Number one, right now, it's not required because it's not even included in 306. But let's say later on, we bring the rule back to committee in law and licensing, and in 306, we add this new license for a school social worker. We are now needing an amendment to Rule R277-309, which is coming up later today, and Board Member Davis has already prepared an amendment to state that although there is a license for a school social worker that's a board-approved license, that those social workers in schools can either have a DOPL license only, or they can be DOPL licensed and have the board-approved license. So, but that's coming in in a separate discussion later on in Rule 309. And so we can have that discussion then.
What happened to our motion?
You answered it.
Oh, there it is. It's moved. It was right there. Okay. All right, here we go. The motion before the board is that the board direct staff to file a notice of effective date for R277-306 with the Office of Administration. Is it on both sides now? Sorry. Oh, here we go. I'll restate it. The motion before the board is that the board direct staff to file, excuse me, a notice of effective date of R277-306 with the Office of Administrative Rules, that we send R277-306 back to committee and direct staff to draft language to amend the rule to include, number one, details for requirements for a school year worker preparation program to be approved by the board, and number two, direction of the superintendent, and number two, direction for the superintendent to establish and administer an alternative school social worker preparation program designed for individuals holding a social worker license issued by DOPL. I'm not seeing any further discussion, so let's vote on this motion. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. So this will be going back to committee.